Hey there, Top Fans. It's Bill from Top Fan Rivalry in Jackson, and it's time to do our weekly review. And there's so much to talk about, Jackson. Oh, how are you doing? And are you ready to dive deep into the weekly review?
I'm doing great. I got my brand new Brave sweatshirt,
I see
so
that.
I'm ready for the season.
Yeah, what's crazy, Top Fan followers, is that this is the last weekly review that Jackson and I will do for the next 7 months that won't have actual baseball to report in it.
Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
so we're there. We've gotten through there. It's awesome. But Jackson, before we get started, can you please tell me what you started doing this last week?
Oh yeah. So if you hop on in the locker room, you'll see a new thing called Chop House Chatter. That's my good friend Thomas and I's Braves podcast. We have 2 episodes up. One's only available in the locker room. So if you want access to that one, if you're hearing this, you have locker room access. But if you want to have your buddies head on in, they have to have locker room access. They can use code Chop House to get 10% off
Yeah,
their subscription for the year, and they can go in and they can see that first episode. We talk Braves camp, and then the second episode that will be on our YouTube channel, which is just Chop House Chatter on YouTube, and you'll see it. We'll do an all-time Braves draft.
yeah. So Thomas and Jackson approached Top Fan and said, "Hey guys, we're starting this. Do you guys want to get involved in this?" And absolutely. Thomas and Jackson, obviously Jackson and I do the weekly review together. Thomas has been on the podcast a bunch. So it just makes sense. So when you're listening to this, please, not while you're driving, but obviously if you're in the locker room, you're probably not driving. Stop what you're doing right now. Stop what you're doing right now. Go to YouTube channel and subscribe to Chop House Chatter. Their content's going to be amazing, especially if you're a Braves fan. Forget about it. They're going to give you everything. They're going to have guests on. I've heard some of the stuff that they're going to do. It's going to be freaking phenomenal. So if you miss it, that's on you. That's on you. So, and we've even got a watch party coming up in June in Atlanta, and Jackson is going to be at the game in Philadelphia, going live with us, and Thomas and I will be down in Atlanta. So this is going to be all kinds of giddy up fun. So
Yeah,
Jackson, like you guys are amazing. This is just incredible stuff that you guys are doing.
yeah. I mean, I'm excited. I get to talk Braves baseball all week now. You know, with
Uh,
someone up. No, no offense, Bill. You just don't like talking Braves baseball. That's not really your forte. But
what can I say? I do my best. I do my best. Oh boy. All right, Mr. Jackson, let's get into it. There's a lot of stuff going on this week. So what's your number one this week?
I mean, we'll start with what happened at the beginning of the week. The World Baseball Classic final
Mhm.
between Japan and the U.S. Japan edged out the U.S. in a 3-2 game. Uh, Shohei Ohtani striking out Mike Trout to end the game. Stuff of legends, really. I mean, I don't think the MLB marketing department could have drawn it up better. 2 outs, 1-run game. Mike Trout coming to the plate, and then Ohtani strikes him out in a 3-2 slider. I mean, I'm sure MLB was like, yes, this is exactly what we wanted to have.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a Hollywood ending. You know what I was thinking though, Jackson, when Trout came up? I
What?
was thinking, oh my gosh, please pitch him outside. Do not pitch him inside and hit him. Oh, please don't pitch inside and hit him. Like let a fastball get away or something. Can you imagine if Otani let a fastball get away and broke Mike Trout's thumb like Jose Altuve or something like that? Oh my gosh. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh. And if
I
you
mean,
notice, every pitch was away. Like,
I mean, I think Otani did his homework though, knowing that Mike Trout, you know, he can hit the pitch away, but he doesn't hit it quite as hard.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
I was laughing. I'm like, please, I was telling my wife, I'm like, please don't hit him. Please don't hit him. I don't care what happens. Just don't hit him. Don't hit him. Don't hit him. But that was a storybook game. Those are games like the Bobby Thompson home run, the Kirk Gibson home run, where you can watch them over and over and over, and you can't, like you say, you can't script them better. It doesn't get better.
that game had the perfect amount of back and forth. It had big moments. Murakami's monster home run to take the lead for Japan. That thing was they said it only went 450. That ball definitely went a lot further than 450.
Oh, and Trey Turner, come on. Man, this guy was lights out during this tournament.
He was. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if he's changing his approach and he's going to try to become a 40 home run hitter
He better
instead
figure
of.
out something because those legs aren't going to work, as long as,
Yeah.
so
I
yeah,
mean, but yeah, it was a great tournament. It was a great ending to a good tournament. And now the teams are heading back.
yeah,
And don't be sad that it's over. Be happy that it happened.
yeah. Yesterday we went to spring training Dodger Diamondbacks game here in Arizona. That's where I'm filming this from right now. And Will Smith was behind the plate yesterday, and he looked, Jackson, I'm not gonna lie to you, he looks like he was in midseason form. I mean, his swing, his approach, he had a double in the right center field gap. I just everything that he was doing was powerful.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's like the upside of the World Baseball Classic since they're facing, especially when they face the better teams later in the tournament, they're facing guys that are kind of trying to be in midseason form. They're pitching a lot better than Johnny Johnson trying to make the Double A team out of camp. You're facing Shohei Ohtani, you're facing, NPB, MVP, Roki Sasuke or whatever.
So yes, it's funny that you mentioned that because yesterday at the game, the Dodgers brought in somebody that I had never heard of, and he gave up. He pitched 1/3 of an inning, and he gave up 3 home runs and 5 runs. And I'm thinking, yeah, and he would. This is against the Diamondbacks, but the Diamondbacks had their lineup out that you're going to see next week when the season opens. And I mean, he was trying, he was throwing decent speed, but there's a lot difference between a single A and double A player straight out of college than there is against MLB guys. And I don't
Yeah.
care your velo isn't your key. Your velo is part of it, but it's your velo, your location, there's a ton of baseball IQ,
Yeah, pitch sequencing, stuff like that.
0-2 counts. What do you
Yeah.
do with them?
Yeah,
So
meaningful pitches. But yeah, so with spring training entering that latter stage, we're starting to see more of, I think, the lineups start to take shape. And I'll,
yeah,
I'll kind of put the. I mean, you haven't done your first point yet. I'll let you go into your first point before I get to my second.
there you go. So my first point is on the WBC. I know we're going to talk about lineups and things like that, but on the WBC, 97.4% of all TVs in Japan were glued to that, tuned into that. I sort of repent a little bit for what I said about the WBC. I think that at the end of the day, here's my hot take on it. I think it's a great tournament. I think it brings great baseball awareness around the globe. I just don't like superstars getting hurt in a tournament that is for the pride of your country. If you could move it, if you could play it with AAA and AA guys that are getting ready to come up in the show or have had a small drink of water, I love it. But overall, it was a fantastic tournament. It was fun watching Team USA and Team Japan. These guys are pros. They're great athletes, and it was a lot of fun. And what I liked most when I watched, and the clips going on everywhere, and I thought I saw it, but I wasn't sure. And then somebody showed it on Instagram. There was a Japanese fan after the Japanese Mexico game, and he was jumping up and down. He was holding a flag in the stands. And then he noticed that he was sitting next to a Mexico fan, and he stopped jumping up and down, put his hands together, and he bowed to him. And then he continued his cheer, like just level respect. And so I love it. I mean, that part of the game I love. I think it was good for baseball. 70 million people watched the Japanese Mexico game, I think is what they said. So phenomenal. Just don't get hurt.
Yeah, I mean, enough said there.
And how much are the Mets and the Astros liking the WBC right now?
I don't know.
I could answer that question. It ain't pretty.
Yeah.
So that's
I,
point number one. What you got for
I,
point number two?
Point number two, I'll kind of transition. The Astros lost Jose Altuve to getting hit by a pitch in the World Baseball Classic, but they're kind of nursing some other injuries. Jordan Alvarez played for the first time this spring yesterday. Kyle Tucker rolled his ankle. at the World Baseball Classic. So, the Astros are nursing a few injuries. And I just think around here, I have a list. I won't get into all of them because I have so many injuries on the sheet. I kind of want to split it into two kind of groups. There's like the not so serious and the serious. So we'll start with the serious stuff. Altuve's out for 8 weeks. Adam Wainwright pulled his hamstring or his groin, pitching for Team USA. He's going to miss several weeks. They're saying 3-4 weeks. Ranger Suarez, who was pitching an exhibition for Venezuela for the Phillies, he got his bullpen session canceled yesterday. They're expecting him to start the season on the 15-day IL with forearm tightness, which is never good. They say there's no structural damage, but you really gotta worry about that. And then the big injury yesterday was Rhys Hoskins tearing his ACL on a non-contact play. I don't know if you saw the video on that.
I did.
But yeah, it looked bad on video. As a Braves fan, I don't like seeing, other teams' players go down. It doesn't bring joy to me. I like beating the Phillies, but I don't like seeing people get hurt. So that's a big blow to the Phillies, who are already missing Bryce Harper in their lineup. Hoskins was kind of that. That's I mean, he's streaky, but last year he put up a 794 OPS, 332 on base, hit 30 home runs. So he's going to be missed, especially when his replacement is here. I have his replacement, Derek Hall, who had 136 at bats last year. Had an 804 OPS, but that's a very small sample size. And living up here in Pennsylvania, the talk is that they might put Alec Bohm at first base, who the Phillies fans are very high on, but he's another one of those streaky hitters that inconsistent. So I think the Phillies might have the fight of their lives in the first half. They're kind of just going to be waiting for Bryce Harper to come back because they're down Suarez. They're down a couple guys in the rotation. Now they're down a couple guys in the lineup. And it's really going to change, the whole NL East race.
Amen. And to amen that, this is where, again, playing all 29 teams helps the Phillies, but can hurt the Phillies, right? So it helps the Phillies in the sense that you're going to play the teams, no disrespect again to these teams, but like the A's and the Tigers and Royals, who are rebuilding, although the Royals have had a phenomenal spring training. So they look really good in spring training. But again, how many people win spring training and then terrible in the regular season? So you're gonna have to beat up on those teams that are rebuilding. Pirates, but then again, the Mets and the Braves also play the same amount of teams, same amount of games. So, but you can't afford a lot of physical mistakes happen. They just do, right? You just can't afford a lot of mental mistakes. Like you said, the first half of the season for them, you just can't. And who's to say that Bryce Harper's going to come back as Bryce? Who's to say that that any of these guys, like you said, Alec Bohm is going to play well? Alec Bohm is like Jason Worth's doppelganger. They wear the same number, same haircut. I mean,
same build.
Yeah, exactly, same build. When you watch him, I'm like, didn't Worth retire? Oh, I guess not. Oh, wait, this is a different guy. This is Bohm. Who's Bohm? So you're right to that point that the Phillies are going to have to play near perfect baseball in the first 3 months of the season.
Yeah, and I mean, I was hearing, I read an article talking about how Alex Anthopoulos, on a related note, the Braves sent down some of their younger players, but the quote I want to focus on here is he wants to have the strongest 40-man roster available rather than the strongest 26.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting approach to modern baseball, because he's kind of banking on people getting hurt or people running out of gas. And it's not that he doesn't trust in his players. It's 162 games. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And the Braves have kind of showed that the last 2 seasons, maybe they don't play as well as they should in the first half, but in the second half, they really kind of just turn it on and just start demolishing the rest of the league. So I think if the Phillies can kind of hold on in the first half and stick around, they got a shot. There's a lot of question marks, but I think that race has really changed, especially, I thought they were ahead of the Mets after the Edwin Diaz injury. Now I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I mean, the key point in that division is going to be don't sit back. Like the Braves 2 years ago when you guys won the World Series, in August, you counted them out. Everybody was like, oh, they're like 8, 10 games back, and then they just turned it on in August and September.
Yeah,
Can't
there
do
were
that this year.
one game under 500 at the All-Star break.
Yeah,
But you can't let teams stick around because when teams get hot,
yep,
they can't. It just seems like they don't lose.
exactly. Exactly. Scary, scary, scary. All right. So my number two is going to go about spring training. And again, not being an athlete anymore. I was an athlete growing up, but not being an athlete anymore. There seems to be like there's a lot of injuries this season, not just in the WBC, but a lot in spring training, as you mentioned. And so I wonder if clubs are going to start hunkering down's a bad term, but I guess hunkering down. Are they going to start hunkering down on these guys in the offseason and saying, all right, boys, you signed this big contract with us. We expect you to come into spring looking good, feeling good, not getting yourself injured in the offseason, being prepared, don't do anything stupid type thing. Because like you say, there's been a lot of injuries this spring training and to some key players too, which will lead me to my third point once we get there. But I just it kind of makes me, I was talking to my wife and I've been talking to a couple friends about this. If I sign one of those big contracts, I know that I've signed my body away for however many years. If I sign a 10-year, $400 million contract for 350 like Manny Machado, in the off season, I'm gonna do nothing but lounge around, work out, hang out with family. I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that money. When my career is over, then I'll get fat and happy. But it seems like a lot of these guys are coming in tight, and a lot of them are going to miss it. So, thoughts on that, Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, and it's trying to find that balance. As an athlete, you want to keep yourself in shape and ideally get in better shape every year. But it's
Hmm.
also finding that balance of rest. And I just think, you know, the World Baseball Classic kind of highlights the problem. I don't think guys get hurt because they're just playing the World Baseball Classic. I think it's because the lack of rest. If you spend the offseason playing in the Dominican Winter League, maybe to get some more work in, or you're playing in Mexico to get some work in, and then you play the World Baseball Classic, then you got to go to spring training. Then the season starts. It's rough. It's really rough. Baseball, you know, because they play so many games, I think the general public's perception is it's not that hard of a sport if you can play 6, 7 times a week. That's an absolute lie. These guys need to be in absolute peak physical form, and they need to be able to balance out resting with playing. And I think that's why a lot of days now you see clubs give people days off every once in a while. You don't see guys play 162 anymore because teams understand you can't just run these guys into the ground in the middle of July because you're going to need them down the stretch.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. All right. So, what you got for your third point?
My third point is going to be World Series or the World Baseball Classic MVP Shohei Ohtani and his performance there. And how does that affect how the Angels approach this season if they're not playing well? Will Ohtani get traded at the deadline? There's a lot of guys that might make some money in this offseason. And Ohtani arguably had the most to lose, but he arguably made himself more money by just showing up to the World Baseball Classic and absolutely dominating. So I kind of want to just talk about this is really going to be a big deal. If you people are sick of hearing of Shohei Ohtani, it's not going to stop. You're going to hear about Shohei for a while. But I think this season especially with the Astros injuries, is it the Angels' opportunity to leapfrog a couple teams? And is it time for Ohtani to finally make the postseason, or will he be traded by the deadline? What do you think, Bill?
No, I don't think he's going to be traded by the deadline because I think he's too expensive. So here's my take on Shohei Ohtani. Being a Dodger fan, and there's a lot of stuff around that say, "Oh, we're going to grab Ohtani at the deadline." What we'd have to give up for Ohtani at the deadline, unless we have his word that he's going to sign a long-term deal, makes zero sense. So I don't think the Angels are going to be able to move him. And I'll tell you, if they move him and they get a bunch of prospects, which you could get 30 prospects for Ohtani. Angel fans are going to lose their minds because now you've got Mike Trout, right? And that's it. And so at the tail end of this thing, at the very tail end of this thing, my argument is he won't get moved, but will the Angels be able to afford to pay him this time next year? And probably not, because he's probably going to be the first $500 million player.
Yeah,
And
I mean, and who do they have on? They have Anthony Rendon on a $300 million deal. Mike Trout was a $400 million extension. And I think that's something we have to keep an eye on because if I'm the Angels, if Ohtani comes out of the gate hot, but maybe the team's not playing so well, maybe I just punt immediately and try to get as much value as possible.
well, from a business standpoint, that makes total sense for the Angels. Problem is who's going to pay it, right? So take for example your club, okay? If you wanted Ohtani, what happens if and I'm just making this up, what happens if the Angels said, we'll give you Ohtani, we want Spencer Strider in return, we want who's your center fielder? Harris, right?
Yeah.
We want Spencer Strider, we want Harris, we want Ozzie Albies, and we want 3 of your number 1 draft picks.
I mean, I'm being the realist I am. I don't think the Braves will ever be in on Shohei Ohtani because of the money and because the farm system's all kind of graduated. I think if the Braves had a good farm system, they might consider something crazy like that with the
But
general manager they have.
but I watched you kind of squirm as I mentioned some of those names because
Yeah.
Spencer is the future for you guys on the mound,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he's legit. Harris is no mess around. Ozzie Albies is fantastic in his own way. So when you're looking at this, you're shaking your head and going, "There's no way to do it." So now throw in the mix. Let's say you do make that deal. Let's say you give your prospects, you give up Ozzie Albies, you give up Spencer Strider, and you give up Harris. Okay, but you get Shohei Ohtani, and you get him at the trade deadline, and then he goes to free agency, and you can't re-sign him, but you didn't win the World Series.
Yeah. You
Was it
see,
worth anything?
no. You got if you pull the trigger on an Ohtani deal, you have to win the World Series.
Well, just me, even winning the World Series isn't enough. I not only want to win the World Series, but I want to sign him long term. Otherwise, I don't want him. Otherwise, he can go away, as far as I'm concerned. What do I know?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Opening days, what, 6 days away now?
Yeah, exactly.
6 days
Exactly.
away.
So you ready for my third one, Jackson? And I'm
Right.
interested to see what you think. So there's baseball. There's 2 aspects of baseball, right? Aspect number 1 is fandom. Aspect number 2 is the business of baseball. Major League Baseball spent so much money. Teams spent so much money in the offseason this year. Over $1 billion in contracts this year. Okay. And some of those were big contracts like Machado's contract and Trace Thompson's contract and Dansby Swanson's contract. Major League Baseball spent so much money in the offseason. Is it time to start? Are we going to start seeing some of and I'll give you my example here. Are we going to start seeing some of the teams bring up their kids and saying, let's let the kids play? And let's see if we can't develop some of these kids into superstars? Because I mean, for example, the Dodgers signed Jason Hayward, somebody you're familiar with, right? The Dodgers signed Jason Hayward to a minor league deal. They signed David Peralta to a deal. Why we did that, I have no idea. We have Trace Thompson, we have Mookie Betts. But guess who broke camp? Dodgers announced that James Outman is going to break camp. Now, James Outman, in my opinion, could be better than Cody Bellinger. But he's a young kid, and there's only 4 or 3 outfield positions, and there's 5 guys competing for it. But I think James Outman is going to play almost every day in the outfield. So the Dodgers are taking an experiment and saying, let's roll with this thing. Let's let these kids play. What do you think? Is it time to let the kids play, or are we still chasing after dollars?
You know, it goes all to what shape your team is looking. If you have top rated prospects, I think especially when they're tearing up the minor league level, there's no reason to hold them back. You
Mhm.
kind of just throw them out there. Like, how much worse can they be than a replacement player? And if they're bad, you can just send them down. Baseball isn't as punishing as the NFL because it is a longer season. You can experiment, try things out. I think some of these teams that have these kind of swelling payrolls should try to take advantage of the talented youngsters they have. I think you see a lot. It's trended. A lot of the good teams in the MLB have good player development. You don't really notice as much. Case in point, last year when Ozzy Albies went down, the Braves brought up Vaughn Grissom from Double A, and even the season Braves fans are like, "Who?" He put up like an 800 OPS. You know,
And he just got sent back down.
he did get sent back down. That's a conversation for a different podcast though, on why that happened. But the Braves were able to plug and play a guy, that came up as a shortstop, maybe profile a little bit better as a second baseman, but he did his job. He put up an 800 OPS. He held the position down. You know, the Braves had trouble in center field. They brought up Michael Harris from Double A. You know, it all really boils down to how your player development is and how your talent evaluation is. Because how many times have we seen top prospects come up? I don't want to throw Jared Kelenic under the bus here. Sorry, Jared. Sorry, Seattle Mariners fans, but he was a top-rated prospect for the Mets. They said he's as close to a sure thing as you can get. He's come up and he hasn't been able to hit at a major league level. And I think the it's finding that balance. You don't want to throw them up too early and take all their confidence away, but you also want to have them get that major league experience because if they gain any sort of ground, they're going to start rolling.
Yeah,
Once,
agreed. 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 I think there's too much. I don't know that the MLB is going to be able to sustain. So the flip side to this coin is we're paying all these money for these guys, which is great. And we all want to see the Otanis and the Machados, the Sotos, the whoever's, right? Dansby Swanson's. We all want to see that. But again, if I'm a father of, let's say, 3 kids, and I want to go to a stadium and I'm going to sit way up at top, but now those tickets are $40 a ticket. Okay. So that's $200 just to get into the stadium, $30 for parking. It's $230 just to go to a game
yeah,
where then you get, drinks and sodas and hot dogs and everything. Before you know it, it's a $400 day. How many times are you going to do that?
yeah,
I
not a
mean,
lot.
once, maybe twice. So a season. So you might see attendance dip down a little bit, or you might see the people that you maybe don't want in the stadium that just want to cause trouble but want to have an experience type thing be there more than your your families are there.
Yeah,
Because again, your father, Jackson, fast forward 5 years and imagine if going to a game for you, just the nosebleed tickets for $50. And so you and your wife and your kid. And so next thing you know, it's $150 just to get in, pay for parking, pay for food. It's a $400 day. Whereas those tickets 3 years ago, those tickets were $10 a ticket.
yeah,
So I think at some point you're gonna have to start letting the kids play. I think that the MLB might get hit a little bit on the flip side because I, baseball might end up becoming a rich man's sport where or a rich woman's sport where all you can do is show up to the game if you have a bunch of money.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
So
know what you mean.
yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that kind of pans out. I think the World Baseball Classic showed kind of teams, instead of paying for these exclusive TV deals, if it's on TV, people will watch it. You know,
Yep. Yeah.
so I think we might see kind of a marketing shift from the MLB to try to make baseball more available to as many people as possible, and then the merchandising will make up the difference.
Well, the World Baseball Classic, right?
Yeah.
because now you can get the MLB channel and you have 10 million Japanese people that might buy the MLB channel online.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We'll see.
Okay, any honorable mentions or any shout outs today since we're finished?
No, nothing today.
Okay. I want to just, as far as a shout out is concerned, I want to give a little bit of love to a guy named Derek Schaefer. I watched him pitched uh, in Arizona yesterday. He's a high school kid who's committed to the University of Tennessee. Phenomenal athlete, phenomenal head on his shoulders. I was so impressed last night in the way that he handled himself, even when it was difficult. So I want to give a shout out to him. He's a name that you're going to hear a lot more, and we've had him on the podcast. We get him up there, so
Yeah.
but that's my shout out for this week. So Jackson, should we do it again next week when we can talk about opening day?
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll be talking on Friday again.
Yes, Friday morning.
Friday morning, because I will be at opening day
There you go.
in
Opening
Washington.
night.
Well, it's opening day here. The Braves will be playing at 1:00 p.m. in Washington,
Okay.
D.C.
Okay.
So
Yeah. West Coast teams aren't playing that early.
Oh, no, they are not.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So, all right, Jackson, around the we covered the around the week, or the weekly review, I should say, and this has been phenomenal. So let's just keep on getting it. And for you top fan rivalry followers that are watching this in the locker room, don't forget we have a ton of watch parties coming up. The first one is actually in 3 days in Fountain Valley, California. Got one on the 1st in Anaheim, California. We got one on, I believe it's the 20th in Atlanta, Georgia. One on the 30th in Houston, 20th of June. One in the 30th of June in Atlanta. We've got one, I believe, on August 18th in Boston. We're looking for locations, scouting out locations right now in New York, Philadelphia, and Chicago. So it'll be a good time. It'll be a good time. So make sure you register for that. And then Jackson, we mentioned your show today, yours and Thomas's show, but how do they get access to your show, A, and B, how do they tell your friends about your show that are here in the locker room?
So for those of you in the locker room, will be Chop House Chatter. We should be posting every Tuesday. I believe our weekly video here on Top Fan will be going up. We'll work really hard to make sure that's consistent for you guys with the crazy schedules that we got. But Tuesday will be our Top Fan episode, and then give us a subscribe on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram, Top Fan Stats Guy, or follow Thomas at 755 Chop. We'll be posting every single time a new episode goes up on YouTube. So if you just follow us, you'll just know when one goes up, and you can go and watch it. We'll talk Atlanta Braves. We'll be doing one soon. We'll be talking to a junior college legend. So we'll just have general baseball talk on there as well, but with the focus on the Braves. But
Nice.
Excited for the season to start, and go Braves.
Nice. I love it. I love it. Thanks, Jackson, and thanks everybody for listening to the episode. And we're looking forward to doing another weekly review next week for you. Have a good one.
You too.